Good evening. Today is Tuesday. It's March the 9th. Today in geometry, we looked at the law of sines and the law of cosines, which are two techniques that you use to solve triangles when they are not right triangles. So I will share the screen and show you a couple of examples here. So if you look at the first one is the law of sines. And the law of sines basically says, if you look, it says if you have a triangle, go ahead and draw a triangle over here. So let's say we have triangle A, and notice the key is this is not a right triangle. So we'll say this is angle A, and this is angle B, and this is angle C up at the top. Now, so that makes this side C, little c, and this little a, and this little b. So now the law of sine says that the ratio of the sine of an angle, so in this case, if we start with the sine of angle A divided by the length of the opposite side, so that would be divided by little a, is a constant in a given triangle. So that equals the sine of angle B divided by side B, which equals the sine of angle C divided by side C. Now that's the law of sines. Now the law of sines works as long as you have a given angle in the opposite side, because you have to have one of these complete ratios. So for instance here, let's look at an example. If I say, okay, this angle looks to be about 50 degrees. And let's say side A here is 7. And then we'll come back and say side B is, let's say side B is 6. Now, so if I substitute in over here, I get the sine of 50 divided by side A, which is 7, equals the sine of B, which I don't know, divided by 6. Now, I do know this, if you remember, when we have a triangle, the largest side is opposite the largest angle. So if I look at this and I have a 7 here and a 6 here, I know that since side B is less than side A, then angle B will be less than angle A. So I can cross multiply here, and I get basically 7 times the sine of B equals 6 times the sine of 50. Okay, I'm going to change this because that looks a little bit like a B here. So, and this doesn't look like a 7. So anyway, we have 7 sine B, because I'm multiplying across, equals 6 sine 50. Now, so if I divide both sides by 7, so I divide both sides by 7, and I do an inverse sine, so I can say that B, angle B, equals the inverse sine, and that's a sine here with the -1. Now in your calculator, the inverse sine is above the sine button. So I type this in with 6 sine 50 over 7. And I put this in my calculator and I get an answer of 6 sine 50 divided by 7, and I get an answer of 41 degrees. So angle B is 41 degrees. Now I can go ahead and I put 41 here. If I add those two, I still remember that a triangle has 180 degrees in it. Now that's 91, so that means that if I subtract from 180, this angle up here, angle C, is 89. And then I can go ahead and put that into angle C right here and solve for C in the same manner that I solved for B. So that's the law of sines, and the law of sines is used when you have an angle. You have to have, as I said before, you have to have one of, find where my cursor is here. There it is. Okay. So you have to have one of these complete ratios, side A and angle A, which is what we had here, or side B and angle B, or side C and angle C, and then you have one other piece of information, okay? Now, so that is the law of sines. The law of sines is the second thing, or the first thing you try if you do not have a right triangle. Now, the next thing you would try if you do not have a complete ratio is what's called the law of cosines. And the law of cosines requires that you have side angle side. So I will come back here and do the text here. So the law of cosines works for when you have a side angle side situation or a side 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 situation. So if we go back and look at the side angle side situation, so if we clear up a few of these things up here. So look, if I have, say I have my 50, I'm going to get rid of this right here. I'm going to get rid of this right here. And I'm going to come down here and say, okay, that C equals, let's say C equals 8. Okay, now, excuse me. Okay, so now I have a side angle side situation. Now, the law of cosines says, basically, if I type it out here using the exponent button, so it says C and my exponent squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB times the cosine of angle C. And then you can write this in a similar manner with another one. So you can start with A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine of angle A. And then a third way to write it would be with B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2ac times the cosine of b. Okay, now in this case up here, since we're looking for side A, we would use this middle side here. So I would come in here and say a squared. So a squared equals b squared, which is 6 squared. Okay, so I do 6 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times 6 times 8 times the cosine of 50 degrees. Now this is a calculator exercise because, I mean, it's a lot of work and it would not be very feasible to expect most people to know what the cosine of 50 is. Now, the simple way to do this problem here, if you have a graphing calculator, is to go ahead and take the square root of both sides here. So we can get rid of this square, and over here on the right, we can put in the square root. So we put a square root over here all the way across this whole expression, like that. And then we put this in our calculator. So we just put the square root of 6 squared, which is 36, plus 8 squared, which is 64, minus 6 times 8 is 48, times 2 is 96. Okay, so minus 96 times the cosine of 50 degrees. And we hit enter, and we get an answer of 6.2. So this equals 6.2. So 6.2 is the length of side A. Now, so then I would have, now here's the thing about this, see, so this is 6.2. Now, so now I notice, see, now I have my angle in my opposite side, which is what I need for my law of sines. So once you do the law of cosines one time for a triangle, then you can go back and use the law of sines to finish solving the triangle. And solving the triangle is what we'll be doing tomorrow in class. Now, the other type, if I come back in here and erase, so if you need to look at this before I erase it, then just pause here and look at this. But I'm going to go and I'm going to show you what it looks like for the side situation. So with a side situation, I would not know the 50 here. So let's say this is 7. So I would have 3 sides of a triangle. Now, and if I look, I can take either one of these formulas. So what I'm going to do, because if you look at this triangle here, if there's an obtuse angle, it's going to be at angle C. So I'm going to solve for angle C to start with. So I go back to this first formula here. So I have 8 squared equals 6 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 6 times 7 times the cosine of angle C. Now notice I don't know angle C, so I've got to work my way backwards here. Now, so what I do next is I subtract off so I have 8 squared minus 6 squared minus 7 squared. And then I have to divide by this multiplier of cosine C here, which is this term here. So I divide by minus 2 times 6 times 7, and that would equal to cosine C. So to find C, I do an inverse cosine. So I put my C here, I put parentheses around this part over here. I'm going to move that equal sign over a little bit. So move the equal sign. So I come back and I put parentheses here. And here's my equal sign. And I put my inverse cosine over here. So I get cosine minus 1. And now I can put that in my calculator just as it shows. So I put my second cosine. And I've got to be careful. So I got 8 squared is 64 minus 36, which is 6 squared, minus 49 divided by parentheses minus 12 times 7. And I hit enter and I get an answer of 75.5 degrees. So I know that angle C, wherever my cursor is here, okay, angle C here is now 75.5 degrees. Now, so once I get this, then once again, see, I have the angle C and I have side C, so I can go back to the law of sines. I don't have to use the law of cosines again. So then I can find and complete the rest of the problem. So tomorrow, as I said, we're going to be working in the same section and we'll be doing the solving triangles part. And when you solve a triangle, you have to find all 3 angles and all 3 sides. So I would go back in here and use my law of sines and find a second angle. For instance, we could find angle A. Once I find that, then I have to add those and subtract from 180 to find angle B. So we'll leave it there for now, and tomorrow night I'll come back and show you a problem about how to solve a triangle. So we will stop sharing here. If you have questions, send me. Remember, the end of the 9 weeks is this Friday. So if you owe me any work, make sure that you get it in so that we can get your grade up to where it needs to be.